So just start with, let me see whether I can see my screen. Jordan, let me know whether you are able to see my screen.
Yes.
So just housekeeping, this seminar series is today's sponsors are SPJIMR GMP and Stevens Institute of Technology, Professor Jordan, who is from that school. And he is also incidentally very eminent in artificial intelligence. Jordan, you would like to introduce yourself and your specialization?
Certainly. Just a note that you've shared the entire screen, not just the slide, so it's a little small, but it's visible. I'm Jordan Suchow. I am an assistant professor at Stevens Institute of Technology in Hoboken, New Jersey, in the US. There I study the intersection of information systems, cognitive science, and AI. My own background in academia and research is in cognitive science and in creating computational models of cognition. So this sits right at the intersection of computer science and cognitive psychology and cognitive science, where on the one hand, we use computational models to try to understand the mind. And on the other hand, we look towards the mind as, in many cases, one of the only known solutions for solving some of the hardest problems, like up until very recently, things like complex language generation, and even the fullest forms of object recognition. And so we can learn from human cognitive capacities with respect to our development of new AI technologies. It's a pleasure to be here.
My pleasure as well to have you on the webinar today. So what we will be covering today, and Jordan, I would like you to know whether you are able to see my screen, hear me, so that we are all set. You are able to see and hear me properly?
It's perfect now, yes.
Okay. So today's agenda, of course, like every time we will have a teasing question. What is common between large language models and programming? And if GMP is available, is Nusrat available? We can also have a poll that what is common between large language models and programming. So people can see.
The poll is live, sir.
Yes. So people can start putting, because there's very interesting part, because till today people were keep mentioning these are only large model languages, and today we are here to saying that it will impact data science. So I want to know what is common between programming and these large language models. So I will give 2 minutes for people to think through what people think about it. What is the common between these two? So I'll give a couple of minutes and then I will start the discussion around that. So start entering your answers, and in this format, after halftime, we do only Q&A. So start your questions also on chat box. Either Professor Jordan will answer, I will answer. If we are not able to answer, we will try to get you back from an eminent expert, and we will try to answer in the next webinar as well. So try to start putting your questions by the time we'll reach the halftime of the webinar. Okay. So I think you have thought through what is the common between the two, because the name of the ChatGPT model behind ChatGPT is large language models. Languages means text, and you will see, sorry. I will just go. Yes. So you can see what is the common between the two. On the left-hand side, I have put what ChatGPT generates. That is the text which is generating, and that is what it was famous for between version 3 and version 4. This is what I was asking the question. What is the common between these two? You will find what is commonality between these two is text. It is human readable text. On the left-hand side of this is also a text, and this program of Python is also a text. Those who are from the software will realize HTML is text, C++ is text, and it is all plain English. Except that here there are structured flows. Here perhaps human conversational mode. But both are generating text. And what OpenAI has done, earlier up to version 3, they were generating only text, no action. And now OpenAI has come out saying that you can give the instruction, I will also execute. And that is what I think is the greatest innovation today. And that is what we'll discuss. So the question is, can it generate programs? Up to ChatGPT 3 also it was generating. But the question today is, can we execute it? And that's what we will see today. That data science scientists, whoever writing huge code, which is a booming profession, how it will impact. And that is what I think we will see today. So those of you who are familiar, this is what the OpenAI site is. The website address is chat.openai.com. And now you can see there is a code interpreter there. I will also show you, those of you who are not familiar with that. Okay. So you are able to see, Jordan, my screen of ChatGPT?
Yeah, we see. Yes, that's right.
So I will just go to the new chat and show to our viewers okay, let me see. This Zoom screen is coming in between. You can see here there are two models. This is also now the ChatGPT 4 is available for Plus subscriber. And you can see here there is a default model. There is a code interpreter, which we will discuss today because the name itself is code interpreter and it is doing phenomenal work today and phenomenal innovation possibilities. And there are plugins which we will not discuss because we will not have a time, and perhaps we will have other webinars as we move further. Okay, but keep your questions coming on the chat. We will try to answer them after the half time. So this is the code interpreter, and the name itself suggests that it is trying to do coding. I mean, in simplest form, it is trying to do coding, right? So let me go back to my PowerPoint and let me try to see. If you see here, this is the code interpreter, which is there for the Plus users. And this is in beta. So you can expect some errors or perhaps more innovations to come. On July 20th, OpenAI has mentioned that Python will be available inside this particular environment. But I'm sure as the time goes by, all the software environments will be available within this particular environment. So this is experimental and it is code interpreter. It is available and it improves the ChatGPT's logic. And what is the phenomenal impact I would like to take and all of you to consume? I have put one particular example here, 6251 plus 1520. And you can see this number. And if you do on the calculator, it is 31,120. If you do on ChatGPT default model, it comes to 31,130. And if you put with code interpreter, it will give you correctly. And you can do it yourself and you can show, and I will show you right now this particular prompt, how it works. Just give me a minute and we'll start to. Yes. I will open a sheet so that we won't spend time on the prompting. Yes, so I have a particular. So if I do it in Excel, you can see here 31,120. Now I go to our friend ChatGPT and I will say it is a default model. You are able to see, Jordan?
Yes.
Okay. This is the default model. And I will prompt ChatGPT, and that you can do from that. What is the sum of numbers You can see I typed all these numbers and I prompted what is the sum, and you can see the result because I've used ChatGPT's default model, and it is a text model. You can see what number it gave. Is it correct by any chance? It has given right now the correct number, but generally it gives wrong numbers as well. But right now it has given a correct number, but many times it gives wrong numbers. Okay. Now we can also see what is the default model we can do. And we can see the code interpreter model. You can see here there is a plus sign here. So we can see what is the sum of numbers Now you see the different behavior. You can see here, it has done a very different thing than what you saw on the first time. Now you can see what it did. It generated Python code and executed a Python code. It generated a Python code and executed a Python code, which we require programmers to write. And I will show you this particular phenomena as we go forward in this webinar. It used to take quite some time because you have to learn the Python and write this particular code. In the default version, it was trying to do in the text. Sometimes it was right, sometimes it was wrong, and you can keep doing. Here you can see here, it has used a Python calculator. And that is what the beauty is, because it is able to generate a text, those instructions, and able to execute those instructions. So let's move further. And the phenomena of this particular part. So you can do all data science tasks. These are our standard data science tasks which are there. You can do a basic data collection, data preparation, some exploration, visualization, experimentation, visualization, and tell the story. Perhaps we will not have a time to do all those things. But what I will do these two tasks. Generally, it will take normally, even if I teach, more than 8 hours to teach this particular task, which today, now in 8 minutes we will do. And that too without giving any technical stuff. Because those who do not know Python, exactly it will do. And just show you what it means in Python for all my friends on the webinar. I am likely to use a famous, those of you are familiar with data science. This is a very famous Kaggle data set called Titanic. I hope all of you are familiar with Titanic data set. And Titanic sank in 1912. And we use this particular to teach data science. It is called, baby steps are taken using this data set. It is available on Kaggle. And it takes around 8 hours to teach the people and practice it. Now I will show you, this is all the code which I have created. You can see how big it is to get a simple questions answered. This is normal Python from my classrooms. And people, of course, get intimidated by learning Python syntax. Right? Now I will go to ChatGPT. Just to make sure that we don't pollute anything. And you are able to see my Titanic train data set. So I have not told anything. I have just opened in front of you the browser, and I am telling ChatGPT that load this data set. You can see it has loaded in the browser. And I'm only having a conversation which generally take 8 hours in my class and teaching. This scribe, I'm not told him what this data set is, but just for all my participants, whoever is there, this is what inside this data is. You can check it is a CSV. It is having exactly downloaded from Kaggle. It has 891 rows. Okay. Now this is given to ChatGPT. Just a minute. Just I will close the windows. Pardon me for that. Yes. All windows are closed. Describe the data set. See how intelligent it is. I have not told him, but he is trained. He is working. You see this particular co-pilot or my friend working. Here you go. I did not tell him what it is. It has come out with data dictionary. It takes minimum 3 hours in the classroom people to give this description. And this is a classroom learning session. You can see how difficult it must have been in actual life problems. See, it is asking me what you should do. Now I will just go and do some simple tasks so that we are able to do. See, this is the task I want to do today. This is the data set. When the file is loaded on the YouTube video, you will have along with these prompts. So I will do exactly what data scientist does. I will take the prompts, the first prompts, and I will load it with ChatGPT. Print first record in tabular format because I don't want to waste my time in reading something else. Those who knows Python, I will show you the code it is generating. Intelligently asking me, it has generated the first 5 rows. And those of you who want to know what is the code. This here is the code which people take, write, and this is what the code it has generated. This is the result, this is the code. This is the head command. Those people who are familiar with Python, you can see here, you can copy and write on the Jupyter notebook. Those who are familiar, it will also work. So it has shown me the first 5 records. I can show you also the next 5 records, right? Generate I have taken some simple tasks so that we can optimize the time. And those who want some more details, you can put it in chat. We can run with Stevens another webinar. You can see here how this intelligent agent is working. It is giving all statistical summaries. There is some network error which it gave. So I will load again, but it will take some time. So let me see whether it's a beta version, but I assume within another month they will release formally. See, it completed the full summary. Now, before I go further, I will tell you how intelligent it is. Okay. I can ask a question. You can see here, this is what data scientists do. And I can generate many questions, but I will tell you one which is doing in the text, and I will also prompt it to do with visualization. See how it has come out with the answer. Now I will prompt him saying that I'm not satisfied with that. Please draw a visualization. Sorry. And explain. Now it will construct a visualization for me. I can also prompt whether I want a particular type of visualization. Yes, here you go. and I can keep going. I mean, we can do many questions. We can do, I mean, throughout the night and trying to do the data sets which are available. But before I hand over to Jordan for his view, I will do another prompt and then I will stop this demo. Generate a picture. Generate. So I want to generate a picture. So it is not only that it does that Excel type of rows. So you can see it will ask me number of questions, and it is not only generating only numbers. So I will say continue. Proceed with your plan. See how it is responding, conversation. It has generated. Would you like me to proceed with generating full frames? Yes, please. So you can see how creative work, media, marketing, everything will get disrupted because of this. And of course, I will ask Professor Jordan saying that how the media companies, and we will start the question answer because we are just 5 minutes behind the schedule. Hopefully it provides me the link. It is auto correcting. So you can see here file. I think it is file not found. I'm not sure why it is not able to give. But it generally gives a file where maybe there is some quota getting exceeded. So what I will do, I will stop the demo here and I will hand over to Jordan to give his views that how it will disrupt, because I will tell you I can generate also video, but it will take time. So you got the sense how can we do analysis with structured data, how can we do multimedia data, and of course there are many topics in between. So first, Jordan, to you, to your views, and then of course I will take audience questions and we will take it from that point.
Professor Brian joined us.
Yes, so I will also take his view. But let Jordan come first, and then I will ask Brian also his views.
Very good. So I think what you just saw was a nice demonstration of the capabilities of ChatGPT when code interpreter is enabled. And I see this as an example of how ChatGPT and in general large language model technologies are compositional in the sense that one can use them not just alone, but in combination with other tools. To combine ChatGPT with some other tool, one doesn't need to do it on the platform of ChatGPT. You could have done a quite similar kind of thing using their API, for example, by creating a script that takes in a prompt, runs ChatGPT to do code generation, and then directly within some local system or some other system takes the generated code, interprets it, and then passes it back to a large language model or ChatGPT to do additional either text generation in prose or additional code generation. And so, it's a particularly nice interface, and I think it's quite nice for doing these kinds of exploratory analyses. But this is one example of a larger pattern of thinking about how we can combine different tools so that a large language model isn't just stuck being a kind of conversational agent, but can actually take actions, those actions being anything from interpreting the code that it writes or that we write, to taking actions outside the context of the machine, like sending emails or downloading pages from websites or generating other kinds of multimedia. There's a few things I wanted to point out about the demo that I think are useful to think about. And one of them is that I think at this point, one needs to be careful when using a tool like this for data analysis for the following reasons. The demo we just saw was based upon the data set, the Titanic data set, which is extremely popular for use in data science-based classes, learning, machine learning, and data visualization, et cetera. And what that means is that data set is all over the web. And because it's all over the web and analyses of it are all over the web, it means that it was actually write-ups about the kinds of analyses you just saw were actually included in the training data set that ChatGPT was built upon. And so it has quite a lot of context for understanding what are the kinds of analyses that people do with that particular kind of data. In contrast, when you go out into the business world and make use of a tool like ChatGPT or related tools for your own data analysis, and in the context of, for example, being a data scientist or business intelligence and analyst and what have you, the system is very unlikely to have been trained on the proprietary data of your company, and that introduces a few considerations. One of them just being like, are we in a context where legally we can upload our proprietary data sets to OpenAI? And there's going to be certain contexts in which that's a hard no. Like you'll have your team of lawyers on you if you, like, for example, like if I work at a university, of course, and if I upload student data to ChatGPT, I'm going to have the federal government on me because that's just strictly illegal. In contrast, many companies actually have partnerships with OpenAI or contracts with them to run it on like through Azure services, for example, so that you can run an instance of ChatGPT in the same environment in which your data lives, in which there's less of that kind of concern. But even if there isn't a legal concern, the big thing is that like ChatGPT doesn't know who you are, doesn't know what your company is necessarily, and certainly doesn't know the specific data set that you're analyzing. And so these tools really benefit from quite a lot of context. When it has the context via something like the Titanic data set and what it's seen before, then it might be okay to write, show me a nice analysis of this data set. But if I were using this in the context of work, I might want to write a few paragraphs where I tell it, here's what our company is trying to do at a broad level. Here's the particular kinds of analyses that I'm working on. And this actually starts to look quite a lot like the documentation that you might write internally as a business analyst, for example, in in providing some kind of report of an output, just trying to provide an executive, for example, with the context for why you were actually, doing an analysis and what the results were. And so, that's both a downside, like it's not magic, but also an upside, which is that you can actually you can really steer the output in the direction that you want it to go in by providing it the context for why you're trying to do something, trying to do a thing. A couple more points related to this demo. Where I think it's also incredibly useful. Like one question many people have is like, you see a demo like that and you're like, okay, so like, what do you need us for? Like, why do we need to? And I think one important thing to realize is that for very simple things, it's going to consistently write high quality code. But for many of the kinds of complex analyses and things that you might want to do that might, like if you were to just sit down and write this in pure Python, it might be tens to hundreds of lines of code, might have a kind of complex structure to it. It's not always going to be correct. That is, it's very common to, if you're writing a program with and using ChatGPT as a kind of assistive device, it's pretty common for it to output code that has somewhat subtle bugs. And which is to say that like you can't just say like, please solve my problem and then copy and paste it into your your code repository, check it in, and then be done with it. I think it's the kind of thing where there's a kind of learning process of what it's good at and what it's not good at, and in what way you need to interact with it. Like where I think it has some of the highest leverage usefulness is when you're trying to do a thing, but you might not even totally be clear on what exactly you're trying to do. You just have a kind of hazy notion of like, for example, like I have time series data and I kind of want to predict something about what the future is going to look like in this scenario. And here's the structure of the data. And like, just thinking about like what are the tools that might be available for doing that kind of projection. If like say you weren't familiar with that particular domain, what's nice is that because a tool like ChatGPT has a tremendous amount of context via all the different data sets it's been trained on, it basically knows the name for everything, even if you only have a hazy description of it, like in a way where it might be hard to Google some things or to search for things because you only have a hazy description of what you're trying to do. Whereas like it can interpret that and can then provide you the technical terms for those things, can show you like demos of what it's like to use those. And so often like where I end up using it the most is when I'm just getting started with a new tool or package where I don't know any of the syntax for how you write a thing in that, maybe even in that language or what have you, and where you can actually ask it to teach you, right? You can say like rather than do the analysis for me, write a like a quick start guide on how I get started on doing this kind of analysis in the context of the problem that I'm trying to solve, right? And like eventually the goal is for you to be able to do that on your own, for you to learn how to use these tools and learn how to use like both the like underlying tools that ChatGPT might be using and to use ChatGPT, so that you can think about this as like working together to solve the problem. But in terms of creating these kind of like custom instruction manuals, where you always have to have in the back of your mind like some of this instruction manual might not be right, in the same way that if you go read some things on Stack Overflow, some answers on Stack Overflow, you don't know that they're right. They're just probably more right than your naive guess as to what the solution is. And so in that way, you can start to like really accelerate your learning by having it write custom explainers that are suited to you as a learner and suited to the particular context of the problem that you're trying to solve, very much in the way that a professor might, like in designing a course, might provide just the right training exercises and things for you to learn a set of technologies or a sort of set of concepts in the context of what you're doing. So in that way, I think like you can create like quite nice personalized learning. And then just the very last thing I'll say is there is like particularly in the context of like using code interpreter and in general just doing code generation with large language models, one needs to think about the fact that certain domains of software engineering are faster moving than others. So that, for example, if you are, if you're working on like if you're doing like compiler design or something, it doesn't move that quickly. And it's very likely that knowledge from 10 years ago is still relevant today. Whereas like if you're doing like bleeding edge front end development in JavaScript, like it seems like every month there's a new JavaScript framework and best practice for doing a thing. And why this is important is that ChatGPT and many related technologies are trained using corpuses, large bodies of text, and there's some cutoff date when they stopped collecting the data. And so, for example, ChatGPT just doesn't know what the world looked like after 2021 because it's never read a single news article or seen anything that's happened, because like that's like it's you'll often see it respond with like about talking about its knowledge cutoff in 2021. And that's it's just like it's not that it doesn't know anything, like it can make some projections based upon what it saw. But for example, if there was a new tool that was released in 2023, it has not the faintest clue like what the syntax is for that Python library, for example, because it's never seen anybody write a blog post about it because it didn't exist in its training data set. Okay? And so these are the kinds of things where like you may see this like in the news or just in discussions about this called like hallucination, where it's not very good at just like admitting defeat and saying like, this is just not an area in which I have domain knowledge or like have much to say. It'll often just like go ahead and say the thing. And so if you like you could do this as a demo for yourself. You could say like make up a Python package that doesn't exist and like see like it might actually just teach you how to use the thing even though it doesn't actually exist. And this is like figuring out that boundary of where you can trust it with respect to code generation and tasks like that are pretty domain specific. It kind of depends on if you're using a big package that everybody has written a million blog posts on, or whether it's some like, low usage internal tool for your company that like nobody's ever written about externally because you're under an NDA or something like that, right? So there's just like figuring out these boundaries, I think is useful, and that you can get from working with the tools.
So, Brian, would you like to educate our viewers and participants how this tool can co-pilot the data science tasks along with the professionals which you are having at Stevens?
I will be much more general than Jordan was. He is our resident expert when it comes to these things. I am on the administrative side. I am not in the classroom teaching anything about this. But I can say that in my role, I get to see a lot of students after they graduate and once they get out into the real world. And one thing that keeps coming back is that they need to know what's going to be on their plate when they get out into the real world and they're in a career. So the first thing you hear about ChatGPT is, oh, wow, can it do my homework for me so I don't have to do anything? And now it's like, oh, wait, how do we infuse it into the class so students know that they're going to be utilizing AI later on in their careers in some aspect, and they need to actually learn about it and not just use it for what the obvious thing is, let it write my essay for me or whatever the computation is. So on a general basis, I think that it's completely necessary that schools like Stevens and other schools you're in association with take advantage of all of the aspects of AI, and the students really understand that they need to learn this for their future, not just to get by.
Okay, thank you. So I will start the audience questions. Pritam, I think it was not visible. I did not see it. We will try to make it next time visible. Will be more creative. Ashish has asked, will ChatGPT able to design complex neural network architecture like reinforcement learning? I have not tried, but you have heard Professor Jordan mentioning. This is a beta version, whether we will able to design a complex neural network. It is a question of how much training it has gone, even though ChatGPT has been trained with reinforcement learning. Okay, that is what the corpus it is used, but we will have to see how it moves further. Venkatraman, you are saying how about if we load a new data set? I think that question was well answered by Professor Jordan. The data set which I took was on web. It was a part of the training of ChatGPT, so the answers were spot on. If it is a data set which is new, I think you may have some surprise. So that brings it to a very interesting question. whether you should put ChatGPT in autopilot, I think the answer is no. Whatever answers ChatGPT is giving, you need to validate. So whether it is new or old, we did not have a time today, but the validation role will be more robust is what my view is, because you cannot trust whether it is old data set or new data set. And those skills people will have to generate. That is what my simple answer will be. Then are there some GPT, BERT, Lamar available for free? Answer is absolutely. I mean, it is available today, some versions. GPT for all, you can use GitHub and load your data sets. There are 13 models available which can run without internet. Please feel free. If you require some assistance, get back to us. We will run a separate session how to run the free GPT for all on the desktop. Then Venkat Ramanan has another question. Why was the knowledge cut off and of the business? Can we have a paid version of ChatGPT that is current? Why was the knowledge cut off? And for business, can we have a paid version of that? Question is not very clear, Venkat. Maybe you would like to clarify. I did not get the question unless Jordan has that. Alternative free tool for chat GPT-4. As I told you, GPT for all available. Google it, you will get it how to install on your desktop. Perhaps it is an earlier version. Some models you will get it and you will get absolutely free. I mean, there is no issue with that. Whether the live version you will get it free, answer is not due. OpenAI has to make money. They have to survive. And they are obviously without money, they will not survive. So they will charge. So whatever is latest, they will charge. I mean, it is as simple as that. Will ERP system will be replaced by ChatGPT if real-time data feed is enabled? I think ChatGPT is conversational model and ERP are transaction processing. But we are in the era where many things are not yet clear. How much enterprise data will go on cloud? It is one clear. I think Jordan mentioned that not many enterprise will be comfortable. Forget about ChatGPT. When the cloud comes, there are a lot of organizations which are hesitant to take their financial systems on cloud. So whether all the data will go on the cloud, answer is no. So whether ERP systems will be real ChatGPT, I think these are extremes, and I don't think extremes are the reality. Somewhere, how to take anonymous data and do some analytics may be possible, but I don't think they will get replaced. Anonymous, kindly suggest some popular plugins for 4.0. I mean, there are 800 plugins, and the plugin which you saw on the webinar today is a paid version. And there are many plugins. Free plugins, I'm not aware unless Professor Jordan knows. For GPT for all is the free model available, but plugins I have not tested, but I will do that testing. Okay, kindly suggest how to identify hallucination. At the moment, looks like I need always cross-check result of ChatGPT. Ashish,
Yeah.
Would you like to, Jordan, clarify that point? Because I think that point is there running through the thread. Maybe you can answer that question.
Yeah, good. I mean, I think this is the kind of thing where the key trouble is that this is one of the biggest distinctions between the output of these large language models and our conversations with people, where we have extremely well-tuned senses about what other people know. And we also have just a lot of social norms about saying when we do or don't know something, right? If you have a member of your team and you're working together, there's just like there are certain expectations that when you ask somebody a question and it's just not in their domain of expertise and they really have no answer, that they are not going to confidently make something up. We probably all know people who in life who aren't really like that and will just confidently make something up. But that kind of meta knowledge about what we know and what we don't know, it's not the kind of thing that's typically baked into the system. It's something that you need to then have a separate training process to do. And so many large language models will have just not a clue about what they know or don't know. And then some of them, like, for example, the OpenAI products, will have a little bit more of a sense of what they know, but it's not an inherent sense. It's because they were specifically trained to respond in that way. So for just to get more specific about this, in the context of ChatGPT and GPT-4, the way that they do the training is they first use a fairly standard approach to training a large language model. But once they do that, they then have this fine-tuning process where they fine-tune it based upon human feedback. This is often called reinforcement learning from human feedback, where what they do is they have a bunch of human testers and they generate multiple possible outputs from the model, and then they ask the person which one of these is a better output. And better is, you know, based upon some criteria that they wrote out in some training guide. But one of those criteria is you know, like, don't confidently state things about which you have no knowledge. Don't be like offensive or vulgar. Don't and then, like, one important one is, like, you know, don't answer questions that are based upon facts that happened after your knowledge cutoff date. So, like, how to identify hallucinations at this particular point in the technology's trajectory and history. The way to do this is to make use of the tool to check quite often in any case where it's actually important that it's getting a thing right. With respect to code generation, it's usually often pretty easy to check whether it's right because you can actually run the code, see if it produces a reasonable output. And sometimes the kinds of errors it makes are things that are just going to, you know, like, the code won't execute. But like, in terms of how do we, like, to what extent can you actually trust the output of these models as being true? It's so dependent on the particular context and how much, like, training data it's seen in that particular domain, that I would not give one answer to the question about how to do it, except that one needs to for each use case that you find yourself interacting with one of these systems in, you're going to need to just develop at this particular point like a personal sense of, like, when is it that you can, like, when is it important that it's actually correct, and when is it important that, or when is it just like it's okay if there's just something that it's making up. In that way, like, I think this is it's much more about, like, developing a kind of internal filter than it is about like, doing anything in particular with the tool. Should we continue with the questions?
Okay.
Do you want?
Yeah. So I hope, Ashish, you got the answer. But my expectation is there are many new job roles will emerge, because these are the issues which you have pointed out are part of this technology. And this is not the only one. There are many topics will come. New job roles, new job skills will come. Some of the repetitive tasks, of course, it will replace. I mean, there is no doubt about that. Can I train GPT with the new prompts and new ideas so it can help me? Answer to this particular question is, GPT is a large language model, and it's a very general purpose model. A chat GPT is an application, one application built on GPT-4 with particular, but there are many applications using API are coming. The case in point, there is a site called Humata. If you go there, you will find using GPT model, it does Q&A. You load your PDF and it gives beautiful answers what it should be. So those are the tasks which are there. There is a web chat GPT, which is also another one which you can plug in with your browser. It takes from the web the present context of what your question, gives that data to GPT, which is up to 2021, and creates that. So there are many ways you can train the GPT model on the present context. I'm not very sure whether it will be a new prompt, but based on that, you will learn how to prompt that engine with the new context and how to generate the context. I think you were hearing what Professor Jordan was mentioning, that if the new data set is given, you have to create the whole context before you give that new data set, so that in that context and whatever very similar type of analysis is done in the training data set, it will able to do. So the short answer to your question, there are ways to train, but it is not a very straightforward at this point of time. You will have to learn through, and that's why you will find many people on the web saying prompt engineering. That is what, $1 million jobs will start coming to. Can we say ChatGPT is disruptive for software development companies? Jordan, you would like to take it to this question?
Let's do this one and the next one together. The other one is like,
Yeah.
can job happen when AI is commonly used? And I think this is just a more general question about the introduction of like automation in and technology in any area where like yeah, there's like certain jobs that become less important or useful with the introduction of some new kind of automated system. On the other hand, there's new opportunities that arise. And in general, my guess is that like on balance, there'll be more jobs in this area that make use of these technologies that and what have you. And so I think this is it's something where like if you like for many of these technologies, we don't really even fully know what they can do. That partly goes back to that question about like new prompts, where people are learning all the time. Every day, people are learning new ways to make use of tools like GPT-4, either by prompting them in new ways to reveal new capabilities that they have, or in creating architectures that use them as components in other systems. And in that way, like I think there's quite a lot of opportunity for people who are interested in creating new startups that integrate these into areas where they have domain expertise in a particular industry, or for anybody in really any role who can just look and ask, like, you know, how can I use these tools to accelerate the kind of work that I'm doing? And it might make certain aspects of certain jobs like, you know, not really components of them anymore, or things that just end up getting automated. But it's, you know, like that doesn't mean the business need's going to go away. It just means that there's going to be some shift in what the job looks like and what the opportunities are. So like for example, like, is ChatGPT a disruptor for software development companies? Sure. I mean, I think it seems to be a disruptor for every company. I don't know anybody who's like any companies that's not at least thinking about the way that it interacts with their company. Are there going to be like no more software developers anymore? Like, no, there's going to be software developers. It's just like you might be either, you know, using a large language model as a sidekick to help you do new kinds of programming more quickly and more robustly than you ever have. So that rather than, you know, spend like months writing the first draft of the code and then never get time for testing it, maybe like now you can actually like accelerate things so that you're writing really robust code that's adversarially tested and just taking things to the next level. And then there'll be also like you know, there are going to be a lot more software projects, ones where like now like one very common pattern that we just seem to be seeing over like the past year or two is that, for what, like, I'm not sure why this is true, but like it seems like there's a lot of problems out there where that many different industries were facing, where they weren't that far from being solved. That just required the right kind of level of AI technology to push them over the edge. And so like if you follow this space, you'll see that like every week there's a new domain where people are like, oh, we figured out how to do this thing better too, or optimize this kind of thing by integrating one of these you know, generation of tools that's been released. So like just literally yesterday, for example, somebody just released like a state-of-the-art forecasting tool, where it's called like Time GPT by a company called Nixtla, Nixtla. And this is like a similar pattern to ChatGPT, where if ChatGPT took a huge corpus of text and used it to train a system that can very accurately predict the next token, this company collected a huge database of time series data and then created a tool that can very accurately predict the next point in a time series. And, you know, like, of course, it's not perfect. There's certain domains in which it's like almost literally impossible to predict the future too far out. But you know, it's an area where like you can new capabilities were unlocked by just pushing it like one step further.
Okay. So we are now coming to end. In fact, we are 5 minutes over the time. I would like to thank all the participants who have participated very actively with Q&A. So any of you wants to have a specialized topic, do write to us. We are running this webinar series on generative AI and ChatGPT from GMP and partner schools. We would love to have next webinar with your topics embedded inside. So do write to us. I would like to also thank Professor Jordan and Professor Brian for sponsoring today, coming, investing, answering the questions, keeping our audience engaged. I would like to thank and look forward to you have on another webinar very quickly to engage more participants on this exciting world of generative AI. Before I conclude, a last say, Jordan, because there was a question. So you can also like to answer that question, and then I will hand over to Brian before I close. Very quick, because we are just running out of time. Jordan? Because there is a question popped up, so I thought we should, job cut happens when AI commonly used?
I mean, I think that is the question that I tried to wrap into the previous answer, where I don't like we're not going to see unilateral job cuts, particularly in any area that is in technology. You know, it like the introduction of any other kind of automation technology, it shifts the area in which things are used. And so for, you know, the folks in our audience today, you're interested in these technologies, you'll be learning about them and becoming experts in them. You'll be like in a great shape for being able to leverage that in whatever industry that you go into. And so I don't think you need to be like worried. I think it's more that like it's a shift of like where the focus is, and being well versed in these technologies and comfortable with them is a way to make sure that you know that no matter where you find yourself, you'll be able to help the business achieve its aims and further the kinds of like products and services by that the company offers by leveraging these technologies, as opposed to like worrying if they're gonna be out to get you, right? You can run with them.
Okay. Brian, last word from you for our audience, and then we will wrap up.
Okay, I can't echo Jordan's words any more than just saying 100%. This is the fourth industrial revolution. The world has experienced changes that have been so dramatic, and people adjust to it. And yes, there'll be new careers that come out of it and old careers that'll go away. It's just change is the only constant in life, and we have to keep up with it. And that's why we here at Stevens have faculty that will help you learn all of this, so that when you do go out into industry, you are prepared and you are ready to bring the world forward to the next level of where it's going to go.
Okay. So thank you, Professor Jordan, Professor Brian, all my participants who joined and have the conversation engaged. Stay tuned. We will be having a webinar again within 15 days on another topic of generative AI, because this series GMP and partner schools will be running right throughout, because this is a very exciting world. And stay tuned, and you will receive an invitation from another webinar. With that, have a great evening, great morning, great day, Brian and Jordan, and see you next time on the webinar. And thank you for all our background work from SPJIMR GMP, Dipali, Nusrat. Thank you, and look forward for